Cerrone, hello. Thank you for joining us finally.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, we appreciate the time. All right, so you were very fired up about this whole Shedeur Sanders thing. Just tell me your point of view.
Well, what got me fired up was the callers got me a little more fired up as they went through it. I understand, we heard all the draft evaluations that he was going to be first round, late, for anywhere from top 5 to bottom half of the first round. So people kind of expected that. I think he expected that, and that's why he wasn't at the draft itself. But to watch him slide all the way to where he did was it was crazy odd. But then to watch the players that were picked before him and the callers calling in and saying, well, it's because he's too flashy. He's too confident. And it's like, we're waiting on the Steelers to pick him. It's like, yeah, but his confidence and arrogance, you don't want a guy like that on your team. And they're probably waiting on Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you don't want Shedeur Sanders because he's cocky and arrogant, but you're waiting on a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I found that interesting.
Well, because that's a great point, because Aaron Rodgers is a piece of garbage. And by comparison, no one could be worse. And I'm not being sarcastic. So that's a great point. Go ahead.
No, but then players like the kid from Louisville, Tyler Shue, who's like 30 years old. He's been playing college football for 7 years, a bunch of injuries and all these other things. And the Saints take him as their franchise guy. But you're hearing stories about, well, the confidence stuff in the interviews didn't go well. We don't like his confidence and all this other stuff. And one guy felt like he showed me up in the interview. He shut down another interview and said, I don't think this is going to work out. And yeah, I get that. I get teams passing up on you and stuff like that. But then you turn around and draft guys with criminal records, and some of these guys were arrested between the end of the season and the draft. And it's like, oh, we're not worried about their character issues. We're not worried about, all the Alabama players that get locked up every year. But this guy showing his watch and having confidence and all this other stuff, this is where we as the NFL draw the line on arrogance and cockiness. But the constant calls for 3 hours. If you listen to the whole show, 3 hours on Saturday, we had a lot of fun, had a ton of callers. Not a single person in 3 hours called about the Patriots draft, which was going on at the time, and all they called about was Shedeur Sanders.
Well,
and
that's why your show was so good.
It was wild.
Yeah, no, and you did the right thing. Believe me, you did the right thing. It was fantastic. Enough that I wanted to have you on the show. Yeah, the notion that he was wearing jewelry is outrageous. I mean, did no one watch the draft? I mean, people tend to buy jewelry when they get the advance from the agent.
Remember Sauce Gardner with the chain that said sauce on it?
Do I remember? It's basically trademarked. Yes. And so, yes, I mean, the idea that jewelry is some other thing. But let me ask you this, Cerrone. If Deion tried to organize this in the beginning, like that he was playing like Shador was a franchise quarterback, and he was kind of adjusting things so Shador wouldn't go to certain teams. Like he wanted to kind of choose where Shador would go for.
He openly told people he was going to do it.
And you gave the example, and you gave the example of Eli Manning and John Elway, and you were saying like if it's because his dad is a famous athlete, Eli Manning's dad's a famous athlete. Eli Manning, orchestrated it so he went to the team that he wanted to go to. But if a team thought, look, I'm not positive this kid could start in the NFL, which a lot of people did say, you have to admit, before the draft, people did say that.
Yep.
And if Deion tried to manipulate things certainly in the beginning, by not having him work out at the combine, by maybe actively tanking interviews, if that's true, who knows? But if that's true, that maybe teams said, all right, well, he didn't want to come here. I'll just take it. I think all things being equal, that this 26-year-old kid from Louisville is every bit as good a chance to be our backup as Shedeur Sanders. I'm just going to err on that side. Is there any possibility of that?
Maybe, but look at the team who took him. So you're going to waste the third-round pick on Dylan Gabriel because you're not sure if Deion's going to, going to manipulate, whatever.
Well, what happened there is that they're idiots and they drafted Dylan Gabriel, and then Haslam came down because he's a terrible owner and insisted that they take Shedeur Sanders. Now, if they would have taken Shedeur Sanders in the third round, no one would have a problem with it. And I'm on the same page with you. Taking both is absolutely ridiculous, and it completely. I mean, and the idea that Kuiper gave them an A+ in the draft because he's got some stake in the Sanders operation. But you're absolutely right. They took a 5'2" quarterback out of Oregon, and then they turn around and take Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur Sanders, I bet you, Cerrone, has a better chance of starting for Cleveland than Gabriel ever does.
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, I believe that's the case.
Sure.
But what obviously happened is, you got to think, is that the Browns make this pick in the third round. And when Sanders falls to the fifth round, Haslam comes down and says, take Sanders. And now they got a whole mess on their hands.
Yeah, they had 5 quarterbacks.
Right.
And one of them was accused of sexual assault about 24 times. And then you paid him $230 million. And I don't want you to come out and say, well, we worried about character issues with players when you got that guy as your franchise quarterback. You didn't care about it when you signed him. But my overall point is the teams that needed quarterbacks coming into it. We knew the Browns. We knew the Giants. We knew the Saints. Steelers were in that category as well. When you saw those teams passing up, literally, we'd rather go into the season with no quarterback than take a kid that didn't interview well. Even though he has a master's degree in football, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, all these things, broke all Colorado's records, completed 74% of his passes, 80% when he wasn't under pressure, something ridiculous. He doesn't throw interceptions. And it's like, yeah, but we didn't like his interview. He didn't interview well. And the thing is, we don't know who this anonymous guy is who interviewed him, and people are saying these things. What if these were teams that didn't need quarterbacks? Like if I'm Shedeur Sanders and Kansas City pulls me in the room and says, hey, let's talk to you for a minute. I'm rolling my eyes the whole time. Like, why am I wasting my time with you? You got Pat Mahomes. Like, it could have been one of those teams.
But that's not wise, though. But Cerrone, that's a mistake, because that's what you can do if you are, Burrow. That's something that you can do if you're, Andrew Luck. That's something you can do if you are a surefire, number one, like Michael Vick. That's something that you can do when you are assured that you're a top 5 pick.
Right.
I don't think that Shedeur Sanders, it goes along to the same point. I don't understand why they thought that they were just based on the information we were getting about what people believed in his talent. There's no question he was successful with
Nothing
Colorado.
about the interviews, just the actual raw talent. Can he play at the highest level? Do you project him as a starter
in the NFL?
NFL, and there were too many questions about that without even getting into how he interviewed.
So, I get it. If the only reason people didn't take him is because he interviewed poorly, that's on them. That's a mistake. It's like not taking Warren Sapp. It's like not taking Tunsil. It's like not. I mean, there's. Look, the Jets have passed on Marino. I mean, the Jets have done it all. They've passed on everyone for stupid reasons and taken idiots. But the way you're explaining it is I don't think that's right though. I don't think Shedeur Sanders was in a position to be tanking any interviews, basically, based on his physical ability. That's what I think.
But I would say this: going into the start of this season, college football season. And most of the season, all the way up until the season ended, it was literally no question that he was going to go top 10. And the only reason the question started popping up was the interviews. So to me, clearly what he did on the field didn't deter any analysis or anything that said, oh, he's 5th round talent.
Burt all year, but
say he was that far down.
No, not 5th round, but Burt was in here early, in Burt. I don't think Burt ever said anything about his interviews.
I didn't say anything about the interviews, but he said if he gets past 3, if he gets past that Giants pick, and he said it's a real question as to whether or not he'll go 1st round. Now, I didn't hear anybody predict 5th round.
No. He didn't predict 5th round, but he was what I'm talking about is even in the middle, when we first started talking about the draft, whenever that was, knowing me early, but he was saying. He's not fast. He's not big.
He doesn't have a lot of
arm strength.
Right.
Because we were talking about how there's no quarterbacks in this draft, right? That was the big talk. So every time we mention that, Bert, who, I know for a fact, like talks to GMs and talks to coaches, and he's on the payroll at Ohio State, that he was saying that there's like deficiencies physically with him. Look, should he have been a 5th round pick? Absolutely not. Is it shocking that he fell to the 5th round? Of course it is. That's anyone who says that is being disingenuous. I think Deion played this wrong. And I don't think Shedeur, especially with the prank call and everything, handled himself very well. I think Shedeur could handle a big market better than a lot of people could. I just think that if you're alienating teams and making your draft, the prospective teams that could draft you that much smaller, knowing that you're not a lock, you're not the number one, and knowing that there's a chance that there's a kid that could pass you. And then you heard people, Jalen Milroe, is he the new Jalen Hurts? And you heard Saban talk about him and this and that. Like, people get crazy around the draft. It just seemed like he was mismanaged going into it. That was my opinion of it.
Yeah, my only thing with him, too, I feel he got nitpicked more than any other quarterback in this draft.
Sure, no question.
And we zoomed in and tried see his footwork. See the way that foot was pointed? We did small things with him. And everybody else, we never even looked at.
Yes.
I mean, we had a guy call in. I said, he's named all these guys that were better than him. I said, is that quarterback left or right-handed? He couldn't answer the question. But yet he knew that this guy was better and that guy was better. If a kid on the college level, that's all we can go by, behind the worst offensive line that we've probably ever seen, can complete 74% of his passes and throw 40 touchdowns, he's one of the best players in the country.
Okay, but like Ty Detmer,
Colorado.
Okay, but Ty Detmer was like the best player in the
Heisman
country.
Trophy, yeah.
And like, there's guys that are great college players whose games don't transfer to the NFL.
And there's guys that these same analysis that say he's not good said Anthony Richardson was going to be accurate on the NFL level. And he was a 50% passer in college, and he's a 50% passer now, and he went top 4.
Right. I get
because
it.
he was big.
No,
what I'm saying? It's like,
but they generally draft based on like potential than they do college performance. I mean, you would agree on that.
Yeah, they do. But here's the thing: we switch. Well, the NFL world switches what's hot and what's not from year to year. For example, if a quarterback ran around a lot, we need a guy to stay in the pocket and read defenses and don't turn the ball over. But when the quarterback is a guy that's accurate, stays in the pocket and read defenses and don't turn the ball, well, we need a guy that can get out on the move. It's like they nitpick back and forth. But all I know is he's better than Tyler Shue, and he should have been the quarterback of the Saints. He's better than Jackson Dart, who outside of the first game of the season, he threw no more than one touchdown against SEC opponents each game. He's better. He played with a better roster. He didn't play with the Ole Miss roster. He didn't play in Alabama, Michigan, or some of these other schools. And I think we just nitpicked him to death, but he still performed. He was a closer in big games. He won a ton of big games. We all watched those games. And even in a couple of the games they lost, he completed 85% of his throws in the games they lost. And we're like, yeah, but he might be a little undersized. But you took Dylan Gabriel.
No, I know.
A different reason, a different excuse.
No, I get that. Do you think there was a conspiracy with the league?
No, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it's a game of telephone. One guy put one thing out, and they all went with it. That's all. I don't think there's nothing bigger than that.
Okay, good. Because I'm like, I don't know about this conspiracy, especially when you have Jimmy Haslam running around.
But I do think there could have been like a collective pushback on the insistence that he was somehow better than Cam Ward, which I heard in one of the pre-draft shows on ESPN. And a couple of the analysts said, no, he's actually the more talented guy. We don't think he's going to go number 1 overall, but he's the more talented. He's the more talented. And I think some guys get their feathers ruffled, and they're like, no, we feel that to such a strong degree, we're not going to take him first, we're not going to take him second, he's going to be so far down the list just to prove our point that we don't analyze him to be that at all.
Yeah, I mean, here's the question I asked, though. Did anybody think Cam Ward was Cam Ward before he got to Miami with all the NIL money? And if you swap Cam Ward with Shedeur Sanders on those teams, what does Shedeur Sanders look like in Miami? You know what I'm saying? And Cam Ward, we got on Shador for not winning. Cam Ward in Miami blew it at the end of the season. They ended up with the same record as he did.
Yeah, and he pulled himself out of the bowl game at halftime. Yeah, he did.
I mean, all those things, but we don't question where his priorities were, and when it comes to that. But I mean, Yeah, it's wild. But anyway,
yeah, we got to go. But the one thing I will say is that if I was the general manager of a team and I thought I could sit tight, I might wait until next year. Is the only thing, because I gave the mock draft people that Yates had out before the season, and he had yours going 8. He had Carson Beck going 1. Like, yep. I mean, it was a bad quarterback draft. There's no question about that. Well, listen, you did a great job. I think, Cerrone, you're very talented. I love when you're on. Maybe one day when someone's out, you can co-host this show. It would be a pleasure. Cerrone, you know your stuff. Thank you so much for joining.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.